Let's welcome the artist of this artwork, Forever Almost, the artist duo Ghost of a Dream from Brooklyn, Adam and Lauren.
Sure. Hi, thanks so much for coming. What are you pointing at?
I'll go over there.
Okay.
She wants me to be in the corner.
I wasn't expecting so many people. This is awesome. So my name's Lauren Waz, and
I'm Adam Ekstrom, and we go by Ghost of a Dream. We started working together in 2007. We got married in 2007. We had a large loft, and we were both working in the loft, and we had a wall built down the middle, and I was making paintings, and Lauren was making sculptures. And I started making paintings about Lauren's sculptures, and she started making sculptures about my paintings.
And so we were in this neighborhood in Brooklyn, and we would take our dog Banana for walks every day. And when we were walking around, we kept seeing these lottery tickets just sort of littered around on the ground. There's like chicken bones and lottery tickets in our neighborhood. That's like about it. And so we kept picking them up and thinking like, these are such a crazy material. They're like these literal hopes that somebody had to like get out of this neighborhood, to get something better than what they have now.
But yeah, when I started looking at these things, and they're about something kind of gross, but when you really look at the object itself, it's a gorgeous thing. Like, they're gorgeous pieces of paper. A lot of thought goes into us thinking they're gorgeous and the design of them.
Yeah, they're designed to excite our brain and to make us like just want.
So while we're collecting these, I'm making paintings about her, she's making sculptures about me. We're talking about what people think about when they're playing the lottery, what people are wishing, and essentially in the end, what people are attaining if they win, and what happens in the full scale of when they win and they have the money and what happens to their lives afterwards. Because most people that win the lottery actually in the end up having less money than when they began, because quite often it gets blown.
So in our research, we found that when people win the lottery, they first buy a new car, then a dream vacation, and a house. So that's like sort of the order of things. So we decided to go about making this trilogy. So our first piece was a full-size Hummer made out of $35,000 worth of losing lottery tickets. And so this car was, we wanted to make it like the face value of what you would pay for a Hummer at that point in time.
It also was the last year a Hummer was produced, and we chose to build a Hummer because it's the most ridiculous American car we can buy, right? It's this big thing, and it's a sign of the most ridiculous car we could buy. And we built it in the way you could see that it was a shell. Like we went to the dealerships, like the Hummer dealerships, took giant pieces of paper, did rubbings so we could get the exact makeup of the car and shape of the car, and we built it as close as we could, but we left little pieces open so you could see it was just a shell or a ghost of a car. And that's when we decided that we're probably going to continue working together, so we should come up with a name. And
now it's the title of that first piece, Ghost of a Dream. So, and it sort of fit. We decided that we wanted to make work about people's hopes and dreams using this ephemera that people use to get there.
And since we've decided that everything we make together now goes by Ghost of a Dream, and everything is about people's hopes and dream, and always created from the ephemera people create trying to attain their hopes and dreams. So since then we've used romance novels, trophies, Bible tracts, a lot of movie clips, commercial clips, found material from art fairs.
And then we've been doing these drawings and collecting words from people, or what their actual hopes and dreams are, or triumphs and tragedies, and collecting these words and making these large-scale text-based drawings that hopefully you guys will get to see tomorrow as we start our one here.
This piece?
So, if we went to Google or something, would we be able to see your art online?
Yes, we have a website, ghostofadream.com. www.
The piece in the gallery is titled Forever Almost, and it came after making that trilogy. So we were making these things we were making these real objects. We made the real dream home, dream car, and dream vacation, and we decided we wanted to abstract on that and kind of work off the ideas of it, but not
Closer.
and then make the exact piece. Go ahead.
What were you saying? Yeah, so we were thinking about the ideas like what people are wishing about and like I just got sorry that lost me. So anyway, this piece we'll sort of start with a backstory about this piece. We had been making this trilogy of actual things, and we got a phone call from this man in Massachusetts, and his father had just lost his house. His house was foreclosed on because he had a really bad scratch ticket gambling problem. And so he called because he had 6 50-gallon drums worth of losing lottery tickets that his dad had collected over the years. And so we showed up there, and his father had lost his house, his wife left him. His children were all pretty disconnected to him at that point.
His job.
And his dream was to build this house in New Hampshire, a castle in New Hampshire, as he says. So his son found him online, and we felt that we had to make something that really spoke to like this desire, his desire to get ahead, his desire for something bigger.
So we decided to make this rug that we see as a portrait of him.
A loose, yeah.
While we were making the dream home, we've been looking at a lot of period rooms, a lot of rugs around the world. We were living in Europe when we made the dream home, and we were traveling around looking at period rooms and a lot of fabrics and a lot of tile work, and kind of putting all those things in the dream home. And then when people looked at the dream home, depending on where you were from, people said, oh, this reminds me of my home in Iran where all these mosaics are, or this reminds me of my home in Switzerland where, you know, I used to go to the museum and the period rooms there. And so we started looking at all these things and trying to find the common denominators of all these things, like what happens the most, where like there's diamonds in these period rooms and in Iran and in Catholicism. And so we were trying to put all these things together. And this is kind of where we came up with the common denominators.
Yeah.
I assumed that this was supposed to be a quilt.
Yeah, I think you take what you want from it. We were also looking at prayer rugs and quilts and all different patterns from different religions and traditions. We do not lay it all out first.
There's a lot of making marks with pencils, laying things down, gluing things down, ripping things up. I mean, there's an awful lot of math.
Organization first.
Yeah.
That's like the first thing. We get all the tickets, we take them out of the barrels, and they're like mixed in with cigarette butts or weird pieces of popcorn, or it's a lot of trash. And we go through in our studio, and then we organize by card, and then we organize all the stacks of cards by color, and all of that. So we have somewhat of a palette. And then a lot of the design comes also by how many of what we have. So Happy Birthday was was one of our more popular cards. And so we're like, okay, mathematically we know we can make sort of a border with that. We had triple diamonds, blue sapphire. The question was, what are some of the other cards in here? Blue diamond, I don't know, power fives. They're all different, and we're also trying to think of, we cut each card so we can make a continuing pattern.
So the way the card is actually scratched is really important. We'll make sure all the scratches line up. For this, it was easier because most of the cards were scratched by one man. But in the beginning, we were collecting from different bodegas, grocery stores, and so all the scratches were different. So it's really important to line up the different signatures from each person.
Yeah, we were really thinking of these things as being like a signature, the way somebody scratched it. You know, some people will just do exactly, they're so good, they know exactly where that number is, and they don't waste any time, and there's like a pure economy there. And then other people will do, you know, these beautiful straight lines across. Other people will like just be so frustrated and like want it so bad that they'll like take off all of the scratch. So you can see a few of them here, but we try to line them up in using that as patterns as well.
Do you want to have a conversation?
The silvery gray part, yeah. Anyone else have questions? Yeah.
When we make the collage, we use a gel medium. So we use a gel medium first, then we glue it down with a gel medium, and once we've finished the collage, then we put an ultraviolet coat on from Golden, and we put 2 coats of ultraviolet coat, and then we mix other coats together to get between a matte and a satin, and then we put 3 or 4 coats of that on, and that just keeps it bright.
Keeps it bright and also somewhat like seals it all together, so it becomes more one layer than.
Yeah, it fools your eye. It becomes one piece of paper until you get really close and see all the cut marks.
It is on paper. I mean, the tickets are paper. It's on panel though. Yeah. I think another really important thing with all of our work is that it is this used material that's traveled actually through people's hands. So the people that are thinking about it and wishing for that have actually touched these things, and some of that like weird juju of their hopes have like rubbed off and become sort of ingrained into our work. So with trophies, you know, we want that, you know, they're these trophies. When we do work with trophies, we want that trophy that somebody like pined over and worked so hard to get, and then mom's like clearing out the basement and and throwing them all out. Or we've been working recently with playing cards from casinos, and these playing cards, you want to talk about?
There's a company that buys the playing cards from the casino because the casino can only use them for a few rounds because everybody rips them or bends them, tries to cheat a little bit. So after 2 hours of play, they get recycled, and a company comes and buys them. Then they send them to prisons, and then prisoners sort them back into decks, and then that company sends it back to the gift shop. So the tourist is then buying this thing that's been through the hands of many gamblers and the hands of prisoners. And that's kind of important to us, like just the energy that come with these cards and all the hands it's been through.
So a lot of our practice is about collecting, and a lot of our time is spent collecting and thinking about what this next object will be. And sometimes it will take us years to amass enough material to begin a collage or a sculpture.
Where are the pieces, the 2 pieces you mentioned? Sorry. Where are the 2 pieces you mentioned previously, the Hummer and the room?
The Hummer is currently in the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum in San Francisco. Well, it's part of their permanent collection, so it's been there for a few years. I think they get a lot of attention from it, so it'll stay there. The Vacation is there's a collector in Brussels that built a house, and he built a kind of a spiral staircase. And so the Dream Vacation, which is it's an 8-foot circle that will spin and move. We actually made it for Deitch Projects, a gallery in New York, or a gallery that used to be in New York. They had a parade, and we built it for that. And the parade didn't actually happen because there was a hurricane, which was really funny because, I mean, not funny, but the parade didn't happen, but the Vacation was a palm tree that spun around, and it was just kind of ironic, I guess, that the first kind of tornado, hurricane-y thing to come to New York in like 25 years happened on that day when we made this palm tree to go down the street. But now it's in Brussels, where this man built this house around, or this part. The dream house is in our storage.
Okay, on this collage, did you draw your design, your geometry out before you started laying the pieces out?
We'll roughly sketch we'll roughly sketch it out, and then we'll put down lines. We'll put down, like, say we'll put down this line, and then we'll just sort of balance and see what looks good next to that. We'll just like lay a bunch of stuff out. So we're making a lot of the design decisions as we're doing it.
I don't know if you already said this, but I was curious, how did you two meet and build your artist relationship?
We met in grad school. I was a big jerk to Adam.
We both went to RISD. I went a year after Lauren, and I was supposed to get a studio between my first and second year, and Lauren was
I had
graduated
graduated.
and supposed to leave RISD and
I didn't
move on
wanna
with her
leave.
life. And Lauren happened to be in the studio that I was given, and so I knocked on the door and I asked, when I could move into my studio.
And I wasn't very nice about it, but he loved
So-
me anyway.
So I'm a pretty nice guy. I'll say it. I'm a nice guy. And so I said, I'm going to go to New York, do some things, and come back in a couple weeks. If I could move in my studio, then, does that work out for you?
And I moved. I did.
Lauren left it vacant. She left a
I made
giant
mean
hole.
faces every time he walked by for a while.
She left a trough of a hole through the floor.
There's a
Left it
4-foot
red.
cut all the way around the studio, wall, ceiling, floor.
And
tried to
maybe
patch
1,000 screws in the ceiling she left for me to take out.
I'm a terrible person.
She's a great person. She also used to walk by the door and flick it off, she told me.
Anyway, we really
That's how we met.
We re-met in the city a year after you graduated, and we had gone to an opening together. And
Lauren had taken a year to teach in Tennessee.
and then he was wooed by my beautiful singing voice at karaoke after party.
That's exactly.
Not true.
And we had our
Of
first
course.
kiss in Chinatown in an entryway to a funeral parlor.
And then
Did the gentleman from whom you got most of the tickets, did he ever see this? What did he think about it?
His son, we sent his son a number of images, and we've only heard secondhand through his son that he was super excited about it. We've never met him. We've only met his son and had a number of interactions
Jim
with
was
his son.
his name.
Big Jim.
but yeah, we didn't hear. We sort of had conversations through his son. And his son was just so happy that something else was happening to those tickets. That something good came out of sort of all the tragedy that his father endured. This piece took about a month, but like a month of two of us working, 50 to 60 hours. They take a long time.
There's a lot of tearing off. There's a lot of gluing things down and ripping it up, and the ripping it up takes a long time
And
because
cut
of how
and cutting and cutting and cutting.
Yeah.
Paper cutter. Yeah. We started with scissors. Our dream home was all made with scissors because I was too cheap to buy a paper cutter when we were in Switzerland. Everything's so expensive there. But it really was not that expensive. I should have bought a paper cutter.
I think Sarah had a question.
I was just curious, do you ever, and I should look more on your website, but maybe you could talk about it. Do you ever work in sequences or as a whole entire gallery show and sort of telling a story with sort of everything material that's a sequence of different artworks?
When we put an exhibition together, it usually revolves around an idea, and we like to use as many media as possible. Like we rarely have had one exhibition where it's all the same material. Like frankly, we think it gets a little boring if we just use the same material for the whole exhibition, with the exception of if it's an installation where it's a room you're walking into and the whole room is the piece, then we've done it with one material. But otherwise, we usually like to mix our collage with sculpture, with some video, photography.
And we're always working across these platforms. Oh. No, I did that. Yeah. This is a book that is from a recent exhibition that we did in Brussels. So, at Gallery Paris Beijing. So.
Were you aware of the museum before he contacted you? And what did you think when they picked you?
Oh, well, we were very excited.
What's she
Did we know about the museum before they contacted us? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we did. We were super excited about the architecture of this building, and we had sort of read stuff about it before.
And the curator, while they were doing their visits, was going to come to Wasaic Project, which is about 2 hours north of New York City, and it's where we spend half of our year and have studio, and it's a wonderful residency. And the education director there was in conversation with Chad, one of the curators, and he was coming to visit our studios. And then it happened that there was a storm, and he didn't make it. But
the Wasaic. We should say more about
we
the
should
Wasaic
talk a little
project.
more about
Yes.
the Wasaic Project.
The Wasaic Project is a residency and exhibition program that a good friend of ours, Jeff, who's somewhere around, and two other folks, Eve Biddle and Bowie Zunino, started 7-ish years ago. I think we're 7 years on the doing the exhibition program, and 5 years ago they started an
Scott
artist.
here also is the curator of music or director of music for the Wasaic Project.
They started so it's this amazing, teeny tiny little town, upstate New York. It's 2 hours north of the city, and it's got this giant mill that's in the middle of town and this huge auction barn. And so the artists in residence spend a month to 6 months in this little town, and they have studios out in the barn. And so we moved up there about 5 years ago, right before they started the residency program, and have been helping out in the project since then, and have our studio in that big barn too. So it's a wonderful place. It's very, very rural, but we get like amazing people through there. Great musicians and artists and everything. Wasaic.
WASSAIC. And the website is wasaicproject.org.
And if you're an artist, they have open calls for both the exhibition and the residency program twice a year.
Now that you've had a chance to come and see all the work together, I know none of the artists that were involved knew much about the other artists or had any idea what the other artworks in the show were. I'm interested to know, now that you've seen it, what was it like to see the whole show together that you're part of, and what's it been like to meet some of the other artists that you didn't know before?
It was pretty great. Like last night was fantastic. Everybody was friendly. It was great. It was great to talk with other artists that are in the show, like what we thought the curatorial idea was after looking at it. Like we're kind of conversing what we thought the common thread was. And somebody we were talking with, who I forgot his name, but we were talking about obsessiveness, right?
Obsessiveness?
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe you weren't part of this.
I wasn't there.
But it seems like the thread I came out of the show was just there's so much obsessiveness in all the work. Mark? What are your feelings,
Isn't all art obsessive? Yeah.
But there's not a lot of minimal work in the show.
True, yeah. I want to see the show more. I need to spend more time. It's like, it was so awesome but overwhelming last night, so.
Yeah, they're seeing over 200 pieces
Yeah, it's
while socializing and drinking.
Do you have an evolution for what you're doing? Have you gone to another stage yet? Or are you thinking about it?
Another what?
Stage, another way of not medium, but
Yeah.
using your technology.
Yeah, I think we're always working along. I mean, Adam and I, when we're working, we'll be doing a bunch of collage-based stuff. We'll also be doing videos sort of at the same time, and these text-based drawings that sort of keep us going, and they're like a little bit mindless because it's a lot of repeating the same word over and over again. But it's like just our practice is sort of like spans all these different medias, and we're always trying to think of what the next thing is. So I think
Our evolution is quite a process, because in order for us to make any work, we have to have the material, and in order to get the material, it takes quite a while. So while we're working on a big collage with lottery tickets, we're collecting a number of other things, whether it's like posting something on Craigslist or buying something on eBay or calling people or taking a road trip to collect. So the evolution takes a couple of years, you know, but from the...
But we're also moving really fast too. I mean, like, I mean, like, this is 2012, and this is like, our work now is very, very different. And I think that it's always sort of changing and flexing, and, you know, maybe we'll come back and use lottery tickets again, but right now we've sort of like moved on to other materials that are getting exciting for us.
I'm curious as to whether what you find or you pick, does it influence where the image goes? Or have you arrived at where the image is going before you would look at it?
I didn't quite hear all that.
I'll restate the question. Does what we find, just not because you weren't clear, but just because I don't think people heard. Does what we find influence the outcome, the finished product, basically? Does the materials influence the image?
Yeah, we recently went on a collecting trip across the country and drove through Las Vegas. I mean, kind of an obvious answer for us, right? But we thought we would get a number of gambling materials and chips. Coin cups actually was our main interest. Coin cups to make a sculpture with the coin collecting cups. And we were having a lot of trouble finding the coin cups. Ended up doing other things. Met my aunt who lives there, and we were kind of walking around outside, and people kept handing us these escort business cards. You know, they're pictures of beautiful
Beauty
ladies
cards.
on business cards, and we never thought we would do anything with those. But that night we were getting a lot of the slap cards. My aunt was very into it. And then we spent all evening doing it, and then back again for the next 4 days. We walked up and down the strip collecting these cards, and that, just because of that little trip, we ended up making a series out of these escort business cards.
But like those were like directly influenced the way we made the collage, because they didn't have the same repeating pattern that the lottery tickets did. So you had to make things with repeating boobs or whatever. but it didn't work exactly the same way. So we had to figure out a new way of turning that material around. We've also been doing a lot of work with baseball cards, and now with Redskins cards because of the name and the controversy with the name.
So about 3 years ago, somebody gave us their whole collection of baseball cards, and we kind of put it to the side, and we're like, well, I don't know if we want to go there, and how does that have to do with what we do? You know, how does that have to do with hopes and dreams? And we sat on it for a couple of years, and then we realized that actually it has more to do with what we do than probably anything. I mean, it's, as children, we get these baseball cards, and then we learn about trading, and that's how we learn about economy, and that's how we learn about trading stocks and business. And so that's how we ended up working with the cards. And that was a huge evolution that we didn't think would happen, and was guided all by the cards. And then, so we worked with a couple collages in the cards, and then we were kind of thinking of more issues to put another layer on top of it. So we started collecting Indians, Reds, and Braves baseball cards, and then we were looking at motifs that happen in both Ohio and Atlanta. And so we started like finding the common motifs that happen in both tribes' artwork, and then we made a few collages based on that. And right now we're collecting Redskins cards and doing the same thing.
Or we don't know yet. We just have a huge table full of Redskins cards, and we're, you know, sometimes we just have to sit there and let it take up room in our studio, and then finally we'll be like, we gotta just work on something.
I always like to ask this question. Who do you look up to as an artist? Are there any sort of mentors that you have, over time that have helped guided your artistic process?
Oh, Jonathan Shipper is an awesome friend and mentor right there. This guy who's also in the show.
He has the slow room that you can see. It's like a grandma's living room that slowly pulls into a hole. Gila is our other friend in the show. She has the sort of Afghan pace. I think we totally take inspiration from all the people around us. We have this amazing network of artists and friends, and they have so much energy, and they're doing huge and interesting projects all over the world. So
I think we're both really influenced by RISD. There's kind of this RISD aesthetic, which, or at least in the painting program, there's like a clean, hard edge, obsessiveness, hardworking. Really got to make it look good and tight, and everybody who teaches there, or at least in my experience, really influenced that. Everything, like before I went to grad school, I wasn't that tight or clean or obsessive. Things would take 1/10 the time. Did you?
Does RISD influence consistency
For sure.
during the graduate program?
Yeah, I mean,
consistency? Is that what you said?
Yeah, to develop your particular style.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a rigorous program that makes you work really hard and try to do the best you can.
it beats you down.
It
and
beats you
builds
down.
up.
Yeah.
As an artist, I have seen work by other people in the jewelry business, and they might put it on a site like Etsy, and it's instantly copied. When we were in the business, the Chinese would come by the booth and say, I can reproduce anything that you need me to reproduce, even though we were working in antique vintage glass. What do you think the internet does to artists' work like this? Is it imitated quickly because it's all over the world in seconds, or can you maintain your own personal style?
I think she was asking if the internet excels people reproducing your work or copying your work.
Yeah, well,
or
she
stuff.
said that she's a jewelry maker, and she said that when she had stuff at shows or on Etsy, people could reproduce her work really easily. And how does that affect art making and the instant availability of images online?
I feel like it promotes competition. I don't feel like anybody's copying more because of that. I feel like we've learned more about other artwork a lot faster. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's a negative thing for me.
No, I think that accessibility to the artwork, I think that more people see your work online, which is like a little bit sad because you don't get to see, you just can't see it the same way.
But I can also spend an hour and see 100 artists quick and know what I want to go see.
Yeah.
Or what I want to be influenced by, you know?
And I think that also in art, like individuality is prized, right? So to copy somebody else's work isn't really, it's not what you want to do. I don't know. But
I actually think it more than, or at least for us, more than seeing what we'd want to copy, we see what we don't want to copy, or where we don't want to go because somebody already went there.
I think artists are often thinking about similar things at similar times, and we sort of all move and build together. And I think that it also allows us to not repeat in a way that could happen if we aren't seeing it all.
I think perhaps for designers, it's a whole other conversation, right? Like the internet and people copying you, but it's a conversation that kind of acts the opposite way for us.
Yeah.
How many lottery tickets did it take? Like you said, to create your piece, that's one. 2, where did you find them? And 3, did you even any winners?
They're all always losers. And if they, I
Or
mean,
for
a lot
the
of
most
people,
part, we don't
a lot of
always
people
check.
accidentally throw, like they get so excited and buy so many lottery tickets that I think it's a big thing that happens is people often are playing so fast they'll even miss their winners. So it's possible there's winners in it. We don't check, but these were all losers, and they're all from one man's collection where we got 3 barrels. There were 6 barrels for us to take, but only 3 would fit in the car. I'm kind of going through it fast because we talked about
We
it a little
talked
bit.
about some of
but,
it,
we did not count the amount on this particular piece. We began working with lottery tickets where we would add up the amount, and the amount would theoretically be what we were making, and then in the end be the price of the piece. But for this piece, we didn't add it up. I forgot the second half of your question.
The question is, do we have advice for aspiring artists?
Go to
apply
business
to
school.
things. It's true.
Go to business school.
Apply to lots of residencies and exhibitions. Like the Wasaic Project is an awesome place to apply for because it's all about emerging artists. So it's about making communities and meeting other people and just getting the word out about yourself and others, right? Like you meet good people and then they're doing good things and they talk about you too, and it's sort of like snowballs.
I have tended to think on some modern art that it was just kind of slashy, and so much of what is in this exhibit is very intricate. It's very work consuming, and I just think that's wonderful.
I agree.
I think that was a beautiful finish there. And again, tomorrow, please go to the outside of the elevator in the 11 restaurant for the Writings on the Wall project. And if you hear this sort of creaking noise on the other side of this artwork, that's the Field of Reeds by John Powers. He'll be giving his art talk next week. So I hope you'll be back. And let's give a very special thank you to the duo team, Adam and Lauren.